Hey everybody, this is Jesse with JTS Woodworking, and I'm going to be making a series of videos covering my top 3 favorite Kreg jigs. For this first video, I'm going to be going over the Kreg drawer pull centering jig. I'm going to show you how to use it and why I love it so much. It's so simple. And the second video, I'm going to be going over the Kreg concealed hinge jig. And in the third video, I'm going to be going over the infamous Kreg pocket hole jig. All right, I love all these jigs. They all have their place, they all have their purpose, but we're going to focus on the drawer pull jig for this video. And so let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get our drawer face. Okay, this is just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, and for this demonstration I'm going to be centering the drawer pull exactly in the center. You can move it up and down slightly if you want to, but to get in the center you want to measure the height and divide it in half, make a mark, and then draw a line left and right on that mark. Okay, so now you got a center line left and right. Then you want to measure the length of the drawer face, divide that in half, make a mark, and then use that mark to draw a center line up and down. Then those two lines where they intersect will be your center point, and you can place your jig on that center point, and then that will give you a perfectly centered drawer pull. Okay, so let's measure the height. Okay, so we got 7 inches there. So we want to take that, divide it in half, and we get 3.5 inches. So we're just going to make a mark right at 3.5 inches. Okay, before we do anything, we're going to draw our line right on that mark. Okay, get something that has a 90-degree straight edge. Just enough to get at least over halfway. So we got our line there. Now we want to measure our length, and we got about 10.5 inches, so that would be 5.25. So we'll take our mark at 5.25, and then we'll draw our line on that mark. And where those two lines meet is where we're going to center our jig. Okay, now this jig has these adjustment knobs here, which lets you control the height. Okay, so remember we marked it at 3.5 inches down, so we can actually set this to 3.5 inches. If you can see on the side here, there are markings. I don't know if you can see that, but we can set this side to 3.5 inches and this side to 3.5 inches. And then this will rest right on the top of the drawer face, and then it will be right where we need it. So let's put our marks on the jig at 3.5 inches. There's little arrows that point to it. Okay, so hopefully you can see that, but the arrows line up at 3.5 inches on that side and 3.5 inches on that side. Now if we take our board and we set this on top of it using this lip, if you can see right in the center hole there, our line sits perfectly on that mark. And then it's just a matter of centering it left and right, which is just using these two little notches up and down and lining it up with the up and down line. And then we'll clamp it and we can drill our holes. Okay, the other thing I have to show you is the other adjustment on here. So depending on what drawer pull you're using, some are wider, some are narrower, sometimes you have a knob. Now, if you have a knob, you can take one of these little round pieces here, you can remove them and place it right in the center. That way you have a perfect centering point where you can drill a drill bit through. Now for what I'm using is I'm using this drawer pull, and it's 3 inches wide where the screws would go in. And usually it's labeled on the package. But for this one, since it's 3 inches wide, there are marks right there, and you set this one to 3 on this side and this one to 3 on this side, and then that way you get it perfectly lined up, if I can do it, okay, right there. That way when you drill the holes, you drill them through here, and there's drill guides in there, and each one, once you clamp it down, then the holes for this will be perfectly lined up. So you have to not only make sure that this is adjusted properly, but that these knobs are adjusted properly, and you just do it by unscrewing them on the back here with your fingers. Okay, so once you have your lines marked and you have your center point and you have your Kreg jig set up where you need it, you want to put your Kreg jig on, put the lip on, secure, line up your marks right in the center, and then use a clamp, any clamp you want. I like to use this self-adjusting Kreg clamp. Highly recommend it. Now your jig is locked in place, and you want to take a 3/16 inch drill bit and drill through these 2 holes, as long as you're using this kind of drawer pull. All right, you can remove your clamp, remove your jig, and there's your 2 holes, perfectly centered. Now we can take our drawer pull, we can take our 2 screws, put the screws in from the back, okay, and we just start to thread them in. And once you have them started, you can finish them off with a screwdriver. There you go, guys. Your drawer pull is perfectly centered, and if you want to get rid of those lines you drew, just take it back off, sand it down, and put it back on. It's that simple. Once you do it a couple times, it's pretty easy. That was the Kreg drawer pull centering jig. If you want to buy this, just go to the description below, and there will be a link to Amazon where you can purchase it. In the next video, we'll talk about the Kreg concealed hinge jig, and it's amazing. I just recently built a cabinet for the first time. I used this jig and it worked perfectly. So we'll talk about that next, and I hope to see you in that next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.